tease out a couple different ways you might think about cultural relativism, cultural moral relativism. You might think that this saying, have you guys ever heard this saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do? They made a movie about it a couple years ago. Now, I've been told by several students that that statement is not trying to be philosophically deep. It's kind of just like, you know, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? It's not trying to even go philosophically deeper than that. It's just kind of a hedonistic shorthand rule of thumb. Like, well, just do whatever people around you are doing because it's fun. But what I want to suggest is that statement, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, could be thought of as a philosophically interesting proposal. Okay? The proposal is, when you're in a given culture, especially the culture you happen to be located in, that's what you should do. What's right for you to do in that culture would be what that culture is doing. Okay, so you index the relativity to the culture that you happen to be located in. You can have other kinds of moral relativism, though, right? You might focus on the culture you grew up in. Here's a little snappy modification. When in Rome, do as you were taught wherever you grew up. Okay? Say Sparta. You've seen the movie 300. You know that the Spartans had their own kind of distinctive moral code that might not be the same as what Rome had, or Athens, or Corinthians, or whatever. Okay, now, you might say, well, wait a minute, it's not so much where you grew up that matters. It's not so much where you happen to be now that matters. Rather, it's whatever culture you most identify with. And when I think about, you know, the fact deep down inside, even though I'm in Sacramento, I'm really a Hoosier at heart. Okay? And, well, that's not fair because I grew up in Indiana. But imagine I said, I'm really a Falcon at heart. Okay? I happen to do my PhD work at Bowling Green State University in Ohio, yay raw, and they're the Bowling Green State University Falcons. Okay? So I might think, even though I didn't grow up in Bowling Green, even though I don't live there right now, that's the part of my life that really formed me in my PhD years. That's what I really identify with. So I need to index my morality to that culture. And I give you an example of how you might try to finesse the famous when in Rome quote based upon what you most identify with rather than where you happen to be. You know, let's say you're troubled by these different forms of cultural relativism. We'll talk about reasons why you might be troubled by them. And you're looking for something that's more calibrated to you as an individual, even more so than this Falcon example. You might say, well, I don't think morality is relative to culture. I think morality is relative to something about each individual person. Okay, so the idea would be focus on your beliefs or your thoughts. I give you an example here from the famous rock song. I want to say these are the Isley Brothers, although I may be pronouncing that wrong. Anybody know if it's the Isley Brothers?
Isley.
Isley, okay. Well, they have a song. I'm not going to try to give you the full sort of wonderful performance of it, but the lyrics include this important phrase. It's your thing, girl. Do what you want to do. Baby, I can't tell you who to sock it to. Now I'm going to be ashamed if this makes it to YouTube, because people are going to be looking at, you know, geeky philosophy professor sings Isley Brothers song. Okay? But
we'll be sure to tag it with that.
Please. Whatever else you do, please do that. So the thing about that song is, you might think of that as an expression of a kind of individual moral relativism, because it's focusing on a particular part of the individual, namely her wants, right? Her desires, maybe her strongest desires. Okay? Do what you want to do. Do what you want to do. Not do what you think is best or do what you think is required, but do what you want. Think of another kind of individual moral relativism. You can focus on the beliefs of an individual. Okay, the Isley Brothers song might be finessed as, it's your thing, girl, do what you believe you should do. It probably doesn't have quite as much of a musical aesthetic excellence to it as the first quote, but it might express a different proposition. Right? Do what you believe is you should do. Okay, that's the right thing to do. What an individual believes is the right thing is right for her. Now, I probably already indicated some of the things that might indicate that you are attracted to relativism, but I've got a couple things on here just to about, do you agree with these, or do your friends and family agree with these? Morality is just relative. You can't judge something as wrong if a person doesn't think it's wrong. You can't judge something as wrong if a person doing it comes from a culture that doesn't think it's wrong. And you might imagine other ways of sort of trying to clue in to whether you or someone else is attracted to moral relativism of these types. So why are people sometimes attracted to it? Well, I've indicated the introductory remarks that some people I think are attracted to it because of its promise, or its apparent promise, to help us to get along better with people that we disagree with. We often are told that this kind of view is necessary even for being tolerant or having a kind of liberation focus and letting people to live the way that they see fit to live, and not sort of imposing your views on other people, not trying to be too pushy and persuading your views on other people, not forcing them to follow what you think is the right thing to do. We're also, I think, sometimes attracted to it because when you're thrown into an environment, whether it's a classroom or another culture, or there's lots of ways for this to happen, you quickly realize that there's a lot of diversity in what people believe and what people are convinced of, even though there may be overlaps. Okay? We often find even the most radically different person from us still agrees with us on some things. Nevertheless, there is often perceived to be a lot of moral diversity in a room this size of philosophically curious people, or in a university setting where there's lots of people from different religious backgrounds, especially. So, moral relativism is something. Quote, "When in Rome, do as the Romans do." That slogan seems to mean that if the Romans practiced slavery, then you should practice slavery when in Rome. And kind of got the ball rolling with a number of different moral questions. The relativist question was one of them. But how many of you are familiar with the novel Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain? Okay, quite a number of you. If they didn't happen to have him lit up, how was we going to know we was passing a town? Jim said that if the two big rivers joined together there, that would show. But I said, maybe we might think we was passing the foot of an island and coming into the same old river again. That disturbed Jim and me too. So the question was what to do. I said, paddle ashore the first time a light showed, and tell them Pat was behind, coming along with a trading scow, and was a green hand at the business and wanted to know how far it was to Cairo. Jim thought it was a good idea, so we took a smoke on it and waited. There weren't nothing to do now but to look out sharp for the town and not pass it without seeing it. Jim said he'd be mighty sure to see it because he'd be a free man the minute he seen it, but if he missed it, he'd be in a slave country again and no more show for freedom. Every little while, Jim jumps up and says, "Da she is," but it weren't. It was jack-o'-lanterns or lightning bugs. So Jim sat down again and went to watching, same as before. Jim said it made him all over trembly and feverish to be so close to freedom. Well, I can tell you, it made me all over trembly and feverish too, to hear him, because I begun to get it through my head that he was most free. And who was to blame for it? Why, me. I couldn't get that out of my conscience. No how, nor no way. It got to troubling me so I couldn't rest. I couldn't stay still in one place. It hadn't ever come home to me before what this thing was that I was doing. But now it did, and it stayed with me and scorched me more and more. I tried to make out to myself that I weren't to blame because I didn't run Jim off from his rightful owner. But it weren't no use. Conscience up and says every time, but you knowed he was running for his freedom, and you could have paddled ashore and told somebody. That was so. I couldn't get around that, no way. That was where it pinched. Conscience says to me, what had poor Miss Watson done to you that you could see her end go off right under your eyes and never say one single word? What did that poor old woman do to you that you could treat her so mean? Why, she tried to learn you your book. She tried to learn you your manners. She tried to be good to you every way she knew how. That's what she done. I got to feeling so mean and so miserable, I most wished I was dead. I fidgeted up and down the raft, abusing myself to myself, and Jim was fidgeting up and down past me. We neither of us could keep still. Every time he danced around, he says, "Des Cairo." It went through me like a shot, and I thought if it was Cairo, I reckoned I would die of miserableness. Jim talked out loud all the time while I was talking to myself. He was saying how the first thing he would do when he got to a free state, he would go to saving up money and never spend a single cent. And when he got enough, he would buy his wife, which was owned on a farm close to where Miss Watson lived. And then they would both work to buy the 2 children. And if their master wouldn't sell them, they'd get an abolitionist to go and steal them. It most froze me to hear such talk. Jim wouldn't ever dare to talk such talk in his life before. Just see what a difference it made in him the minute he judged he was about free. It was according to the old saying, "Give a N an inch and he'll take an L." Thinks I, this is what comes of my not thinking. Here was this inn, which I had as good as helped to run away, coming right out flat-footed and saying he would steal his children, children that belonged to a man I didn't even know, a man that had never done me no harm. I was sorry to hear Jim say that. It was such a lowering of him. My conscience got to stirring me up hotter than ever, until at last I says to it, "Let up on me. It ain't too late yet. I'll paddle ashore at the first light and tell." I felt easy and happy and light as a feather right off. All my troubles were gone. I went to looking out sharp for a light and sort of singing to myself. By and by one showed. Jim sings out, "We's safe, Huck, we's safe. Jump up and crack your heels. That's the good old Cairo at last. I just know it." I says, "I'll take the canoe and go and see, Jim. It mightn't be, you know." Jim jumped and got the canoe ready and put his old coat in the bottom for me to set on and give me the paddle. And as I shoved off, Jim says, "Pretty soon I'll be a-shouting for joy, and I'll say it's all on accounts of Huck. I's a free man, and I couldn't ever been free if it hadn't been for Huck. Huck done it. Jim won't ever forget you, Huck. You's the best friend Jim's ever had, and you's the only friend old Jim's got now." I was paddling off, all in a sweat to tell on him. But when he says this, it seemed to kind of take the tuck out of me. I went along slow then, and I weren't right down certain whether I was glad I started or whether I weren't. When I was 50 yards off, Jim says, "There you goes the old true Huck, the only white gentleman that ever kept his promise to old Jim." Well, I just felt sick. But I says, "I got to do it. I can't get out of it." Right then along comes a skiff with 2 men in it with guns. And they stopped, and I stopped. One of them says, "What's that yonder?" "A piece of raft," I says. "Do you belong on it?" "Yes, sir." "Any men on it?" "Only one, sir." "Well, there's 5 inns run off tonight up yonder, above the head of the bend. Is your man white or black?" I didn't answer up prompt. I tried to, but the words wouldn't come. I tried for a second or two to brace up and out with it, but I weren't man enough. Hadn't the spunk of a rabbit. I see I was weakening, so I just give up trying, and up and says, "He's white." "I reckon we'll go see for ourselves." "Oh, I wish you would," says I, "because it's Pat that's there, and maybe you'd help me tow the raft ashore where the light is. He's sick, and so is Ma'am and Mary Ann." The devil, we're in a hurry, boy, but I suppose we've got to. Come, buckle to your paddle, and let's get along." I buckled to my paddle, and they laid to their oars. When we had made a stroke or two, I says, "Pat will be mighty much obliged to you, I can tell you. Everybody goes away when I want them to help me tow the raft ashore, and I can't do it by myself." "Well, that's infernal mean. Odd, too. Say,
Say, boy, what's the matter with your father?
It's well, it ain't anything much. They stopped pulling. It weren't but a mighty little ways to the raft now. One says,
Boy, that's a lie. What is the matter with your pap? Answer up square now, and it'll be the better for you.
"Oh, I will, sir, I will, honest. But don't leave us, please. It's the gentleman. If you'll only pull ahead and let me heave you the headline, you won't have to come near the raft. Please do."
Set her back, John, set her back, says one of the men. They backed water. Keep away, boy. Keep to Lord. Confound it, I just expect the wind has blowed it to us. Your pap's got the smallpox, and you know it precious well. Why didn't you come out and say so? Do you want to spread it all over?
"Well," I says, a blubbering, "I've told everybody before, and they just went away and left us."
Poor devil, there's something in that. We are right down sorry for you, but well, hang it, we don't want the smallpox, you see. Look here, I'll tell you what to do. Don't you try to land by yourself, or you'll smash everything to pieces. Float along down about 20 miles, and you'll come to a town on the left-hand side of the river. It'll be long after sunup then, and when you ask for help, tell them your folks are all down with chills and fever. Don't be a fool again and let people guess what's the matter. Now we're trying to do you a kindness, so you just put 20 miles between us. That's a good boy. It wouldn't do any good to land yonder where the light is. It's only a wood yard. Say, I reckon your father's poor, and I'm bound to say he's in pretty hard luck. Here, I'll put a $20 gold piece on this board, and you get it when it floats by. I feel mighty mean to leave you, but my kingdom, it won't do to fool with smallpox, don't you see? Hold on, Parker, says the other man. Here's a 20 to put on the board for me. Goodbye, boy. You do as Mr. Parker told you, and you'll be all right. That's so, my boy. Goodbye, goodbye. If you see any runaway inns, you get help in Nabble, and you can make some money by it. Goodbye, sirs, says I. I won't let no runaway inns get by me if I can help it. They went off, and I got aboard the raft, feeling bad and low, because I knowed very well I had done wrong, and I see it weren't no use for me to try to learn to do right. A body that don't get started right when he's little ain't got no show. When the pinch comes, there ain't nothing to back him up and keep him to his work, so he gets beat. And then I thought a minute, and says to myself, hold on, suppose you'd done right and you Jim up. Would you felt better than what you do now? No, says I. I'd feel bad. I'd feel just the same way I do now. Well then, says I, what's the use you learning to do right when it's troublesome to do right and ain't no trouble to do wrong, and the wages is just the same? I was stuck. I couldn't answer that. So I reckoned I wouldn't bother about it no more. But after this, always do whichever come handiest at the time. Now, he gets on board the ship again, and Jim is thanking him for helping him by tricking those other people so they wouldn't get on board the ship and see the slave that he'd been carrying. But, Huckleberry Finn is, there's actually a famous article in philosophy called The Conscience of Huckleberry Finn. If you ever want to read it, it's a controversial article because of the directions it takes after that. But they analyze that particular episode even more deeply than I've tried to analyze it here. And there's a lot of response to that particular article. But Huck Finn, in that particular case, like in other places in the book, is somebody who's thinking through a problem which, to our eyes at least, looks like, boy, Huck Finn is doing the right thing by trying to help this slave escape and to be a loyal friend to the slave. And yet, his culture around him is saying that it's the wrong thing, arguably. And his individual conscience, or maybe you don't want to identify that as his conscience, but a number of features about his individual psychology, beliefs that he has, desires that he has, seem to be saying, don't help Jim escape. So, if you think it's the right thing for Huck to help Jim escape, if you think it's morally permissible, then that, I believe, suggests that you may not really believe deep down in certain kinds of moral relativism. Well, I've actually spoken for a little bit longer than I had anticipated, but that should hopefully get our boat pushed off the shore, to use kind of a Huckleberry Finn analogy, and thinking through some of the complexities with moral relativism, some of its prospects, why it's attractive, and also some of its problems, why you might want to resist it and push back and say, you know, you don't have to be a relativist in order to believe in the importance of tolerance, respect for other people, and so on and so forth.